Hi, my name's Paul and this is PJT Ventures. Join me while I ramble on like an empty dump truck. Today's ramble, we're going to reclaim an old fence line and we're going to move a bit of the soil kind of down the lease as well as the driveway and try to get it so that we can actually farm up to the kind of the border of the property and to the oil well lease. So basically what happened is this is the border between the two fields as well as now to where the oil lease is. And historically there was an old barbed wire fence here that of course surrounded the perimeter of the field, and from this side there was lots of erosion that built up and kind of made a bit of a ridge where the old fence line was. Then the oil company came in and when they made the lease a number of years ago, they kind of put the clay up to the height of the old fence line, which really wasn't the true height of the field. And you can see on this side's been reclaimed, where there's the property line going that way, and the material has been taken away from when, you know, like many years ago, there was a barbed wire fence here, and the soil would kind of build up, and every year maybe if it blew, you know, we're talking like 50 years ago kind of thing, or 100 years ago. So anyways, this clay can come down and we'll get it back to the same elevation of what the field used to be, and then I can farm right up to here and they can spray up to here to keep their lease clean, and I can keep my field clean, because this is kind of a weed trap, and to try farm up against this, it's just not very practical. So we're going to take the material from this little bit of knoll and we're going to put it down into where the lease road kind of made a bit of a steep bank, and so we'll try to put as much of the clay from this side down first, and then we'll try to layer the top of it with this bit of topsoil that's kind of here. So we'll see if we can get this down there, and then I can farm right to the border and I won't have all this weed pressure here. Anyways, of course, right at this site is 2 pump jacks and 2 oil wells, and then of course the 2 pipelines go from this lease and they go all the way over to that little set of tanks and those other pump jacks there. So the oil company has given me permission to come up to these pipelines, but they don't want me driving over the pipelines with the scraper, and of course I need to stay back from the pipelines. But so we got locates done, and so now I'll just stay here. It won't take much. I'll take as much as I can with the scraper, and then I will maybe come do a little bit of landscaping with the skid steer after, if there's some rocks and whatnot. And then of course next year I'll be able to farm right up to it. So we'll go ahead and get started. Well, it's looking pretty good. You can see where this is an old fence post and all the rocks got stacked, but we're just about there. This is looking really good. We'll get a little bit right there. The oil company can spray up to there. I can farm up to here. We just about got it level. A little bit more here, a little bit more there. But yeah, it's working really good. Okay, well, there we go. That was a pretty good little job. I was sure happy with how the scraper worked. And yeah, a couple of things to go over. It's always really white smoked, and you know, of course, I'd made some comments about it, maybe, you know, just old or wore out or this or that. But one of the longtime viewers, he recommended that we check the screen up inside both of these air cleaners. And of course, I had cleaned the oil bath part, and that was fine. And there's this has a primary, so the air goes in up there, goes through the primary, oil goes across this tube, goes in a secondary oil bath one, and then of course into the blower, and that's how it feeds the engine. So anyways, sure enough, you know, I just only cleaned these. But so then the other day I took it apart, and yes, up inside the screens this one was of course especially bad because I think it gets the most. It had a kind of like a hard oil mud, as well as then, like, it just had all sorts of things. Like, it had some random yellow paint flakes, had some random pieces of grass, and then just some overall, just, I wouldn't say it was clogged off fully, but it took a lot of rinsing and spraying and blowing to get it clean. And so I did it to both of them, and what a difference. It'll now just sit and idle, or I would say a high idle. Like, it has a really high idle, I think, because the generator, or maybe whoever set it last, but it's fine, it has a high idle. It would just always be smoking, and when you put it under load, it would be a combination of white smoke and of course unburnt black smoke fuel. But now there is no smoke when it's idling, and so that's really good. And of course, there's been an increase in power since we did that. When we were driving it here, I had my son just follow along on the quad, and the quad has a digital speedometer on it, and we were doing 55 here, 55 kilometers an hour. That's like 34 miles an hour, and it was ripping. So that's cool. And yeah, so I'm really happy. It seems to have more power. It seems to hardly any white smoke, so that's that's a bonus. So yeah, just as simple as cleaning the wires in the air cleaner. And then next, the whole reason I think I was able to get the scraper in the first place was because of this guy. So when I bought the scraper, this was removed, and obviously the person who had it before us, we don't really know the history. It was 20 or 30 years before someone had, we think, you know, it had gone to somebody's place and then somebody else's place, and so we've kind of lost the actual history of ownership from it, where it came and who bought it and all that. But anyway, so for 20 years it sat at this guy's place, and this was removed, stored in a shed. I brought it home. We went through this whole thing, and we redid the gearbox and the seals. We went through this whole thing. We tested everything. We new bearings and seals, and then got it operating, and then of course went through the rest of them, and same did to those, and got the generator running. But the more and more I used it, the more trouble I had with the brake. So this is a spring powered set of brakes that, when you energize the motor, these electromagnets pull the springs off of the brake discs in there. There's a whole bunch of, kind of like a clutch pack in there. But anyways, they release the clutch or the brake pack. The motor's able to spin. The moment you let go of the switch, then the brakes come on to stop the rotating inertia, because this motor is a 3600 RPM motor. This is an 85-to-1 gear reduction gear case here. So there's a tremendous amount of flywheel style or flywheel type inertia of it spinning, and this has physical limits of its linear travel. So you can't just have this bottom out at its physical limits, because it breaks the cable. And I actually broke the cable because I couldn't get the brake to work correctly, so I caged the brake in essence. I just put spacers in here, and then I was just kind of like very tentatively trying to you know, take it to its travels either way. But of course there's no way to see, there was no way to see where the eject was, because of course at the bottom it's pushing the dirt out, so you can't see it at the bottom, and by the time everything stops moving, you've broken the cable. So, and then of course it has electric cutout limit switches, and they operate, but they only are useful if the brake works. So it turns out that this guy, one of the 6 electromagnets is faulty. So finally, after all this, it turns out that this guy's shorted. That's what was causing my irregularities with making this brake work. And so for the time being, I had made this kind of a visual aid, and so this is welded to the ejector, and when the ejector comes up and gets close to its limit, it presses on this, and that of course says stop, and of course that all has to have a line of sight from the cab, because when the apron comes up, that blocks your view back here. When the dirt's coming out, you can't see, and then even depending on how high or low the scraper pan is, you can't see because of that big bar frame thing there. So this guy worked actually really good. So I'll leave him there regardless of what happens at the back once I get that fixed. But yeah, so he just, and I just made a quick thing out of some scrap here. I had a big nut there for counterweight, and anyways, so that was kind of an addition. And I mean, people make groan over it, but if it prevents me from breaking this cable, that was a whole episode in itself, rewinding all that. So anyway, so that one particular electromagnet may be the reason why this all got taken apart. Maybe that's why they stopped using it, and they were hunting for this. And so apparently, I was talking to an electrical friend of mine. He says that you can rewind these. You get like this special wire, and you like, so anyways, we'll see how that goes. That's But anyways, yeah, so those are some a couple of topics that and then of course you saw it worked great. I mean, it's a little tight to get in there. I'll come with the skid steer and finish that little bit up there, but yeah, this worked out great. Anyways, so yeah, thanks again for joining me, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye for now.